Awesome. Could I just ask before I kick off, how long do I have to present? Because I've got basically two different variations of the presentation, about 10, 15 minutes and about 5 minutes, whichever suits.
I should think 10, 15.
10, 15? Okay, cool. Sweet. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. I'll just wait for the present button to highlight so I can actually click it. I don't know if we got 2 seconds. Let me stop share and try again. There we go. Okay, can you all see that in presentation view then?
Yeah.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. I mean, hopefully it's morning where everyone else is. We've just enjoyed 2 days of beautiful weather, and I think I'm with Claire on that one. I absolutely love the heat, and I feel not necessarily productive in it, but I just feel, I suppose, at home in it. I don't like to lie in it, but you know, just to exist in the heat, I really enjoy. So we are Global Teacher. We're a charity and a social enterprise that work in unison, both called Global Teacher. Really one organization, one with a trading arm, one being a charity. And we've existed for 3 years. We're a startup. We're a tech for good charity, if you like. And I founded it in February 2019. There's now 3 of us full time. And we've came a long way, to be fair. So I'd like to tell you all about that journey and about what we aim to do. And I suppose it dates all the way back at university when I was studying design engineering, and our final year project as design engineers was to choose a subject area, find a problem and design a solution. That was basically the brief. So I went off to conduct my dissertation and did a research report, and I found all of these shocking statistics. 15% of the world's adults are illiterate, what being the kind of headline. And then my research became about asking why. So why is it that essentially over 1 billion people can't read or write in 2017 at the time? And it turns out there's numerous barriers to education. So 31% of people have no electricity. Over 1 billion people don't have access to data. And in Cameroon, 1 textbook is shared between 12 children. So this is clearly not a feasible way to learn. And the current solution, when I did some further research, I thought, this is such a big problem. Surely it can't just be me at university that's looking to solve it. So I looked out at what other people are trying to do, and Books to Africa are a non-profit based in the south of England. And what they do is they go into schools, box up secondhand textbooks and ship them to Africa. Now, the problem with this is, even though it's a fantastic solution in its own right, they've donated over 1 million textbooks. But the problem with this is it's very costly to fund a shipment of books. It can take 6 months to get there. And when the books do get there, they often degrade, not to mention the fact that they're culturally inappropriate and often out of date. So this was my kind of epiphany moment, or big question, if you like. Why can't you donate digitally? Think about it, the mass amount of digital content available in the ecosystem that often sits on teachers' hard drives, or, you know, it's idly there in the ether, let's say, but it's not necessarily being distributed correctly. And people are shipping textbooks around the world. Is there not a more efficient system? This was kind of my question. So then we kind of formed this, I suppose it's a vision really, or a mission, to make digital education available for all. So no matter where you are in the world, you can access digital education. That should be, not only should education be a right, I think now digital education should be a right. And then the further question is, so how do we achieve this? So our utopia, if you like, is, so if there's no power in these remote parts of the world, then we need some off-grid tech in the worst case scenarios. And if there's no internet, then we need some offline software. And if the content is sparse or out of date or culturally inappropriate, then we need to do better at finding appropriate content partners that can adhere to language, culture, and basically up to date on national curriculum content. Introducing Pod. Now, Pod is the networky tech that Julian described at the beginning, which is basically an off-grid, offline solar power projector. It is essentially the world's first 3D printed solar power projector. And I'm just noticing a typo on projector there. Basically, we see this being distributed around the world to give offline, off-grid education to the most rural, remote parts of the world. Imagine a classroom in East Africa, or we're doing some work in Tanzania and Kenya, where they're miles away from the local town. Imagine if we could bring the best quality digital education to these areas, with the premise being offline, off-grid, anywhere in the world. To take a little kind of more in-depth look at the projector, this is just kind of an annotated view. You can see the plastic's actually 100% recyclable and biodegradable, which is pretty cool. It's PLA, which is formed from potato starch. We actually 3D print it in our workshop. That's literally in the room next to me. We have a vent for cooling. We've got like a lens cover to prevent dust ingress. We've got a wireless remote, all of those things. An SD card, so that means if people on the ground have content available to them, they put it on the SD and plug it in the back. The remote snaps magnetically and alter the focus, and this is basically where you plug the power in. And meet Lumi. Lumi is basically when you turn, so as soon as you turn Pod on, you will be presented with this view, which is our platform. So we basically have designed a bespoke offline learning tool that will give access to the world's best content. So to talk you through this is basically our app. We have a learning management system. This is how you access the SD card, and this is how you would access the settings for the projector and things. And these are some of our content partners. So Ontum, based in India, the Brett Foundation do work in Lebanon, Mexico, Colombia, lots of Latin American, lots of work in Latin America, and EdPlace are a UK-based organization who want to make their content available offline and off-grid. As I mentioned earlier, as soon as you click Pod on, this is kind of the view that you would see. So this is a typical view in the classroom. So far, as I mentioned, from university and graduating in 2017 and 2019, we formed Global Teacher as a non-profit. In 2021, we raised six-figure investment. And in the beginning of 2022, the beginning of this year, we actually launched the product with that investment. And then since recruited staff, moved into an office, and we're now about to go on pilot season, as we're calling it. But why now? I think it's important now, and it has been for, many years. You don't need me to tell you that. But increasingly since COVID, the digital divide is only widening or increasing. And I think COVID has not only validated the importance of digital communication, but also validated our idea in a sense, because now more than ever, digital education, distance learning, and the ability to function in some way digitally is more important now than ever. And I think this bottom billion that often gets termed will consistently or continue to get left behind. So I think now is a great time to harness the technology that we have, the creative minds that we have, and come up with a solution to that problem. And also, I think the big thing about the fact that we make it in-house and we 3D print it is we get to challenge industry. I went down a year down the road with a product design company who got to a final design, and the company, I mean, this is a professional organization. They've advised the government on innovation and prototypes and things like that. So we worked with them on that basis. We got to the end of the project for final design. They said, no worries, all you have to do is raise £100,000 to get tooling, and then you'd make the shell, the plastic shell, for £33 a unit. And I thought, well, £33 a unit sounds great, but where's the £100,000 coming from before we've even, like, you know, moved one around the country or done anything? So what we did is we decided to make it ourselves with 3D print it. Now we make the plastics for even a fraction of that, and the startup cost of having a suite of 3D printers was far less than £100,000. So we got to innovate in that way as well. And this is our workshop that I mentioned. This is really in its early stages. It's not that clean and tidy or like kind of simplistic now, but this was when we first set it up, a small suite of 3D printers, and we just cracked on from there. The beneficiaries of this project, as you can imagine, really are directly teachers, because we believe, like many of our content partners, that's why we choose them, is because they believe empowered teachers change lives, and believe that really it's about CPD and giving the teachers the tools to be the leaders in the room, and to empower the students, really. Forgive me if you can hear. Basically, one of our interns just came in, and we just had like crazy, like madness in the office for like 15 minutes of the dogs going crazy. And students, obviously. I think we've just been doing a lot of work recently to define why we exist, and we realize in all of our journeys there's been a moment where we decided to change the trajectory of our lives through choosing better for ourselves or deciding that we want more, essentially. And the catalyst to that moment, or the catalyst itself, was access or exposure to information. So we want to exist as the spark to basically ignite each and every one of those students. 2 seconds. You'll have to take it, Mark. You'll have to. So this is our team. This is Chloe, who's just beside me trying to deal with the dog. And she's now being assisted by Jack. So the 3 of us, as I mentioned earlier, we got an intern from the local university on board as well, Timmy, and he's helping us out with some mechanical and electronic stuff. This is me presenting at our launch event in January, and this is Jack, just talking through the projector and how it works. And this is our board. So we have a board of 3 trustees and a board of 3 non-exec directors who have got a wealth of experience, really, and especially our latest 2 additions, Dean and Mark, who've just been transformative, really. This is Sumi, our chair, who's a fantastic speaker. You can check some of our YouTube videos out where the whole event from London. We actually did a launch event in December and January in Sunderland, but in London, you'll hear Sumi speak about her experience from Malaysia. And they used to get delivered tea chests of books. And the reason she moved from Malaysia to Northern Ireland to study accountancy, even though she never did accountancy again, but she's worked in New York, Chicago. She's now vice president of a big market research firm. Fantastic career because of the fact that she got exposed to rich information at a young age, and that gave her the confidence to leave Malaysia and basically carve out her own life path, which is quite special because it resonates exactly with what we're trying to do. So the future roadmap for Global Teacher is, as I said, pilot season is pretty much now. So we're just about to send out 6 projectors with the Bretto Foundation. They're going to be going to Mexico, Lebanon, and Ukraine, interestingly enough. And then amongst some other pilots, we're also going to send some to Kenya with Coco, but we don't know if that's going to happen anymore. But we're basically starting at the E3 initiative. We've got loads of kind of on the ground partners that we're trying to initiate pilots with. The aim of that is to learn all we can, come back, refine the design, continue to raise money, and by Q2 Next year, we want to raise 500,000, and we think that'll be a good stake in the ground to get us on the way to empowering 1 million marginalized students. We know that one projector or one educational system will educate 500 students at least, so we need 2,000 units to reach that target. But even so, I think the more projectors we get out there and see how they work and learn about them and change them and adapt to suit, I think it could be a really good solution. So that's the direction we're headed. So basically, that there's 1 million more dreamers, visionaries, and problem solvers in the world, because we think igniting those people is really how you kind of spark change. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Cheers, Julian, for the opportunity to speak. I'd love to get to know you all a bit more. Obviously, my knowledge is very limited of who's on this call, but it's always great just to be in a room full of like minds and spread the message. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. It's hugely inspirational to see what you've created. The people in the room are essentially customers and people at the coal face. We're the people who are supporting communities around developing countries to deliver things like this. So this type of product is something that I believe, could have a huge impact in the number of schools that we work with. So yeah, I'm very excited, but I'd like to know a little bit more about how you would get, or, for us in East Africa, we're Swahili speakers. How do you get content into it that matches the curriculums of the different countries?
I think that's the story behind how we've managed to solve that is quite a long one. But to make it short, the initial idea was to get teachers and content creators all around the world to donate the doc. That was the mission that we were trying to, and we thought, let's build a platform almost like a YouTube where teachers are just given their resources, and eventually we build up like a Wikipedia of resources, and then we make them available offline. But then the question became, okay, so how do you form curriculums out of that? How do you take a child from A to Z through a course and all of it? How do you structure that, and is it aligned? So then we realized that was not only a big marketing effort to spread that message to the point where we had enough content, but it was also maybe not the right approach. So what we decided to do instead was to partner with content providers. So as you saw, see if I can go back. As you saw on the platform view here. So for example, Ontum are now working to produce an aligned, locally produced with even local illustrators for Zambia. Basically, they think if you speak to Ontum, they think they've cracked the solution of content. They've done this design thinking model, they've built content from the ground up, they work with local people, they do local illustrations, they make it culturally appropriate. And they've done that in India, I think in around 25,000 schools, and they want to move to Africa, basically. That's their next target. So they're starting with Zambia, and they want us to basically help them on that pilot. We're going to both pilot in Zambia together. But the point is, content partners, we basically don't have the capacity to do the hardware and the content and make it all culturally appropriate. So what we do is we onboard, so you can either plug PDFs or regular resources, Word documents into our app, and that's a learner management system that you see here. So basically you can search by keyword, age, language, and subject, or you can just plug in via SD card. That's for your raw content. But then in terms of apps, we can onboard. Ontum have an app. The Bretto Foundation have content, but they have such a wide range of content. We're actually creating an app from this app and skinning it up in Bretto Foundation's colors and giving them their own app. EdPlace have an app as well. That's basically tailored around English, math, science, the national curriculum in the UK, but we think that will go far as a resource around the world. But it's basically that's the model, is to partner with people who essentially know more than us about content and make them available via our platform, and ensure that wherever the pod's going, it has the appropriate content on for that country or that location or that region.
Do you know Shula Direct?
Funnily enough, yeah, I've had their app open in the Google store for a while, in one of my tabs, but I didn't actually contact them. But I do know of them, yes.
So they've done downloaded content for the Tanzania secondary curriculum. And do you know World Possible, Rachel?
Yes.
So they've done huge amounts of downloaded content, not for the Tanzanian curriculum, but Khan Academy. You've seen all their resources?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on a Raspberry Pi, we've used that quite a lot in Tanzania.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's about the reason why the Shula Direct was open in my tab was because when it's right at the time, at the moment, we've got the content on there to test the projector and do what we need to do. But following that, we want Khan Academy to be on there. We want Shula Direct to be on there. We want Wikipedia to be on there. TED, just basically the best information from around the world. We want to host and distribute via our platform and our product.
So how much is your device?
So we're currently just working out the price at the moment because originally the idea was to sponsor a pod for £500, which we thought was a really competitive price. But now we're learning about global international shipping and how difficult that is in a small quantity that we're doing for the pilots. So that's making the price go up. We've actually got a meeting at 10:30 today to talk about that exact subject, just to see where we need to adjust the price. So I can't tell you a figure at the moment because what we want to do in the future is move them around the world in basically pallets and air freight and do that in bulk. And then that's going to drive the cost of shipment down. Then hopefully it will be more competitive. But for now, it's going to be upwards of £500 per unit.
That's for the device and the projector and the panel.
So essentially what you get is this kit, which is a 50-watt solar panel, which has legs and like a wire, which is strapped into the back. So then you run that wire into this battery pack, which will run the system for around 6 to 8 hours. So enough for a day's teaching when there's no sunlight. The wire then runs out the back of there and then to the back of the projector. The projector comes with the remote. So that's all of the hardware essentially. When there is sunlight, I might add, the projector runs live off the sun. So it kind of bypasses the battery and fuels the projector live. And with the surplus energy, it trickle charges the battery. So that's the hardware. And then it comes with the suite of software as well.
So, I mean, obviously you can, so we have set up systems like this in Tanzania running off a Raspberry Pi. And obviously you can buy the solar panels and the batteries locally, which ends up as a much cheaper solution. In
terms of, so talk me through that solution then, please.
Okay, so Raspberry Pi is, for people that don't know, is about a computer that's about the size of a cigarette packet, something like that. And you can put in a Wi-Fi, which generates a local Wi-Fi network. And an SD card that you can download 64 gigabytes of content, which is the whole of Wikipedia, Khan Academy, TED Talks, etc. And you can, so that system would cost you about 45, 50 quid. And then you can very easily transport them to Tanzania or whatever. And then you can get, we generally use refurbished projectors that we buy out in Tanzania from Affordable Computers and Technology Tanzania. So they're probably around maybe £120, something like that. And then you could run it, if the school has got electricity, then obviously you can just run it directly. Otherwise you can run it from solar panels that you can also buy locally. So that that has a huge amount of content, but we've also got content from Shula Direct, which is tailored to the Tanzanian curriculum.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I see that solution, and that's what we're competing with. Someone buying refurbed bits and batteries from here and there. But the idea with this is it's a level up in education. Basically, it's an entire system. It's a product with the user experience, and I think that's where the not necessarily the problem lies. I think that's a really good solution, but I think it's time to move past that and to basically to evolve the classroom into something that's an end-to-end solution. Not only is it been designed with user experience in mind, but also the possibilities are kind of limitless, and we're a company that looks after all of that and distributes it. Once our scale goes up, we're looking to drop the price even below £350. The kit that you're referring to, you're already talking about, you know, 200, £300. And then you need someone, you need someone skilled, and there's a lot more work in that really than you would initially think. We've been developing that exact solution, and we know exactly what's involved. And it's not just a case of plugging them all in together. The Raspberry Pi needs programming.
No, I know. I mean, I've been doing that.
Yeah. And I think is that scalable? Is there a Tanzanian refurb projector all the way around the world? No, the idea is let us look after it. We're a tech for good company. We're going to create amazing products. We're going to create a software that's infinitely scalable. We've got a wireless remote. We're giving the teacher the power, and it might be an argument of why do we have a whiteboard, and teachers going, well, this whiteboard costs £50. Why do we need an interactive one? And the idea is, well, do we want to stand still? And I think the answer to that is no.
Of course we don't. But I mean, the reality of the schools that we're working with is that many of them don't have water. So, you know, then you could argue that, yes, an interactive whiteboard would be wonderful, but you know, you have to start where you are.
So what? I'm not quite following you there in what the point you're making. Sorry.
I'm just saying, the schools that we're working with, I mean, you have to start where they are. I mean, and access to water and so on is an issue still. Yes.
So how does that hinder the implementation of our solution?
Money.
So that's what I thought you were talking about, and that's not our model, fortunately. So our model doesn't rely necessarily, especially in this instance, on the beneficiary paying. Our model is corporate sponsorship, and basically larger charities who would buy them, say UNICEF, or the NHS Foundation are interested because they have nurses in developing parts of the world that they would like to support and distribute their information by. They would be talking about 2,000 units to distribute in bulk. So therefore that the ultimate beneficiary would be unlikely to pay for the entire kit up front. But we do want to have some cost investment because, again, through our research, well, I think everyone understands that there has to be some investment for them to value the solution, because we all know if we get something for free, we just sideline it, don't we? And it becomes less important. So I think it's important, maybe even there's a small subscription model for the software or something in there, but the model is initially to corporate sponsor it and on their behalf. So Herman Miller, for example, is a big office furniture company. They sponsored X amount of pods. Last year, a philanthropist sponsored X amount of pods. So it's now our job on their behalf to distribute these pods around the world, and then they get to have their CSR or their impact, and we distribute the pods to carry that out.
So you said you said you already have some in Tanzania?
No, so basically all of the work that we've done in Tanzania has been basically through the software platform. We haven't actually had any. The hardware has taken longer to develop, basically. That's what I was referring to, how basically to make something as seamless and as end-to-end and as fluent as we are, it's a lot of work. This platform could easily walk into a school in the UK, and that's how many steps up we're going. So it's important. That's the reason that the hardware and software have taken so long to develop. One of the early stages of the software development was like proof of concept stuff. We basically piloted that in Tanzania with Coco. They've got about 5 schools in Tanzania around a particular area, and then from that we went into Kenya and did some research and calls and whatnot. Basically a lot of kind of focus groups and Zooms with Mr. Sengo and other teachers in Tanzania and things.
Chris, thank you so much for talking today. I'm sorry we have to wind that up because we've got other speakers coming on board. But it's been fantastically interesting to learn about it and to see the progress you guys have been making. It's also interesting to hear what Janet has been saying about how she's been, cobbling different parts together to work out her own solution. But thank you very much for your time. And I hope that it was a useful session for yourself. It was certainly very useful for us. And please do keep in touch about the progress you're making, because I think it's going to be hugely interesting and important for everybody. And I congratulate you on your work. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Just really quickly, Sharon and
Thanks,
Abigail, I know you had your hands up, but just in the essence of time, if you want to send either myself or Julian any question that you have, we'll make sure we pass that on to Chris so that it can come full circle.
I mean, even if you want to put it in the chat, I'm happy to type up an answer right now.
Or
if that's
that.
easier.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you again, Chris. That was really interesting. Thank you. And I want to take this time to introduce Abigail from Sabre Education. Move the World has been working kind of side by side with Sabre Education for many years. They've kind of been maybe one day we'll get to do that. Kind of put them in the focus for us. So thank you so much, Abigail. They are working in Ghana, but I will let her explain a little bit more about what they do and their model for building schools and teacher training.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks for having us. So I've got a presentation. Let me. The focus for today is our school building work, but obviously we also do teacher training and advocating for policy and practice changes in early years education in Ghana. So I'll just share my screen. Can you see the presentation there?
Yep, all clear.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we are Sabre Education, and our mission is to help all children succeed by giving them the best possible early years education. We work in Ghana, and early years in Ghana is what some countries call kindergarten, so it's a 4 and 5 year olds, like pre-primary. So we're one of the leading early childhood education organisations, and we work in close partnership with the government of Ghana to support them to deliver Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is all around accessible quality education for all. So we've had 18 years experience of working in Ghana in the education sector, in partnership with obviously the government, government schools, but also private sector, colleges of education and universities, and obviously local communities that we work in. And our Brighter Futures programme tackles the challenges to access and quality in early years education. So we do this through improving school environments, implementing play-based learning in schools, so that's around our teacher training, and influencing policy and practice. So today, for the purpose of this, we're focusing on the school building or enabling environments work. So school infrastructure in Ghana faces a number of challenges. So you can see here, 40% of pupils don't have access to desks and seats in government schools. There are over 4,000 existing kindergarten classrooms that are in need of a major repair, and the country will need over 7,000 more kindergarten classrooms to be built to meet the target of having a maximum of 40 children per class. Classrooms we see at the moment, I mean, it differs. Some there's 15, 20 children, others there's like 70 to 90 children. So there's definitely a need for more infrastructure at the moment. So our Building Playful Schools programme probably really kicked off in about 2008 through a partnership with international design and architect firm Arup. We gave them a brief to design a school that would work in rural communities with no pipe-borne water, no electricity, and to be built with local materials, to be sustainable, to be environmentally conscious, and most importantly, to be child-centered and to support a play-based education. So this is an example of a government kindergarten school in Ghana. I mean, this one's a fairly negative example. One of the buildings hasn't got walls. That's not always the case, but this is quite common. And an example of inside a classroom. So that the government kindergarten schools aren't designed with sort of young children in mind. The classrooms aren't very big. They're very hot and dark and dusty. So they're not conducive to having a productive day at school. And this is one of the Sabre built schools. So you can see obviously it's secure. It's got sort of a border fencing around it. So the children are all sort of safe in there. You know, a large building, it's bright. There's playgrounds and shaded outside teaching areas. There's toilets that are suitable for 4 and 5-year-old boys and girls. This is inside one of the classrooms, so you can see it's nice and big and supports play-based learning. So some of the features of the schools, that it's a performance-based design, so it's all quite clever, because basically in a place with no electricity or water, you end up with a building that, you know, in a really hot country is very light and bright and airy, and the classrooms are really quite cool inside. And that is all to do with the orientation of the building, with the sun rising in one area. You know, it's positioned to make it as cool as possible. The shape of the roof and the overhangs create a shaded walkway all around the outside of the building. The roof is a corrugated metal sheeting, but it's got insulation in underneath it. So not only does that make the roof cool, it also dampens sound from the rain. One of the challenges in Ghana in some of the government built schools is that when it rains, it's just deafeningly loud, and the class has to be cancelled basically and go home. And obviously that it does get rainy for long periods of time in Ghana, so that's not ideal. They have these like bamboo pivoting or tilt and turn windows, so you can have like the windows open to a point where it allows air to flow through, but not too much sun coming in. So that also helps to keep it cool, and teachers can adjust the brightness in the classroom with those. And also with the corrugated roof, that acts as a rainwater harvesting system. So in communities with no pipe-borne water, there's a couple of big poly tanks that sit either side of the school, and rainwater is collected off the roof. The heat of the roof does like step one of killing any bugs in the water, and then there's a filtration system in the poly tank. But we'd say the water was more for sort of washing and cooking than drinking nowadays, really. But yeah, so there's a source of water, which is great. And as I mentioned earlier, that the schools are child-centered. So as part of our teacher training, in line with the government of Ghana's kindergarten curriculum, it's all focused around learning through activity and play. which is the best way to learn for young children. So the classrooms are big, so the children can move around. The teachers can have, like you can see in the top corner there, like big circle time in the morning, and for sharing stories as a group. Then they have plenty of room for the tables to be set up to get the children to work in groups all around the classroom. And they have learning centres set up around the classroom, which sort of mimic everyday scenarios. So they have the market centre, they have the construction centre with blocks that the children can practice building things. And then the teachers can get creative. There's a salon centre with like a hairdressing centre. The Chief's Palace is another centre they have, or the home centre, all sorts of stuff. But the classroom gives them, the schools give them the room to do that. And there's always a shaded outside teaching area, which allows the teachers to take their teaching outside, and for the kids to get even more active. So they'll do like assault courses or water play. Also, it's a great way to start with early writing skills. So they call mark making in the sand outside in the shaded teaching area. So that's the feature, and obviously a playground. And they're also safe schools. So southern Ghana is actually an earthquake zone. So the schools are designed to be seismically resistant, and that certainly will be the safest school in the community, because I don't think any other buildings in these sort of rural and coastal communities are built with earthquakes in mind. So they're a safe construction as well. So to date, we've built 19 schools. I think we built the first one in 2010. But as we're moving forward and looking towards being sort of sustainable, last year we signed a MOU with the Funds and Procurement Management Unit of Ghana's Ministry of Education. And that project is going to be around co-creating a cost-effective and child-friendly kindergarten school design that can basically become the blueprint for Ghana going forward. So when the government builds a new kindergarten school, it would be built to that blueprint design. So taking on board some of the features from our schools, but making sure it's affordable to be rolled out nationally. And then we're also looking to start a project called Creating Enabling Environments. So we're moving away from building playful schools, and it will be creating enable environments, which might also include building schools in some communities, but it will focus on a sort of lower cost and higher impact project where we can make improvements to existing classroom infrastructure, because obviously it's not feasible to knock down every kindergarten school and rebuild it, and they don't all need that by any means. There are sort of smaller or lower cost improvements that can be made to existing classrooms to make the play-based education easier for the teacher to implement and more enjoyable for the children. So things like, having a shaded area outside, having proper furniture, having enough tables and chairs in there, having shelving, and even a chalkboard or some way that a teacher can fix stuff to the walls and put things on shelves so that they can have teaching and learning materials in the classroom. So that's an area where we're looking to move towards in the future, so that we can help more communities. And also, as we've been delivering our teacher training project, one of the key challenge that comes up time and time again is infrastructure. So the teachers are taught to make all these teaching and learning resources from like everyday reclaimed items, but then they've got, if you think of that classroom I first showed you, where are they going to put all that stuff? It's made out of cardboard and things like that. If it rains at that school, it's just going to come right in the side and ruin everything they've made. So the teachers end up taking it home. They don't have enough tables and chairs. They don't have a shaded outside teaching area. So these are all things that are challenging for the teachers to implement the play-based curriculum. but these are also all things we can help. You know, just having a lockable storage area in the classroom where the teacher can put the resources, making sure there's enough tables and chairs for everybody, putting a shaded area up outside. But it might be more major things, sort of like reinforcing the roof, making the building safe, because there have been issues of buildings collapsing and causing fatalities in Ghana. So, you know, that will all be based on a needs assessment in the areas we work to see what the needs are in the schools, and then we'll be developing it from there. So yeah, that's it. Thanks very much for listening. Have you got any questions?
Thank you so much, Abigail. Yeah, please, any questions, comments, thoughts? Abigail, are you still using like coconut shells in the roof for like what's it called? Not inflation, the other one. Insulation.
For insulation, I think now we've moved towards it's not the coconut fibers, it's basically waste products from the duration of the build. So like wood shavings.
Okay.
They're using now. Yeah, because the coconut fibers were sort of a waste product from another area, whereas as the schools were being built, there are things being generated on site, so it's better to just use those. But yeah, definitely still, you know, and they're still packed into mosquito nets and packed up into the roof the same way. So I can see, do you want me to go through the questions? I can see one from Mel. Do you use local contractors? Yeah. Yeah, when we started in 2010, we had a team employed by Sabre, and Arab engineers would for free like second an engineer to Ghana for 6 months, and they mentored Ghanaian based engineers to learn how to build the school and how to teach the construction team how to build it. One of the other features that we got through working with Arup was a construction manual, and obviously a lot of the adults in Ghana and the construction workers were illiterate, so the construction manuals all drawn, so it's like it's a picture of how bits of the school go together, and you know what nails or screws go in this and what happens here. So that was shared. But as time's gone on, so it was all Ghanaian construction workers building the school, and all the materials were sourced in Ghana. But as time's gone on, and our teacher training work has sort of organically been the area where we've grown, we've moved to a contractor model, and yeah, we use local contractors in Ghana to build the schools now. And we will do the same with the enabling school environments. Once we get going with that, we'll use local tradesmen, tradespeople to do that.
Is Sabre's plan to try and build schools in other countries as well, or are you focused primarily in Ghana at this point?
We're focused primarily in Ghana, but obviously we sort of pride ourselves on being collaborative and a learning organisation. So we'd certainly be happy to look at working with organisations that are already embedded in other countries. But I think our teacher training is the area that's really taking off, and because it's the area where we can help more people, and like we're working with the government and Right to Play and lots of other UC stakeholders in Ghana at the moment to kick off a national scaling of a like unified teacher training content that we've been working on with Right to Play and other stakeholders in the Ghana government. So the scope with that one is helping every single kindergarten school in the country, because it won't just be government. We've also started working with low fee private schools. So obviously that's And that's one where we've also talked about other countries, but the school building work at the moment, obviously we've built 19 schools. So we have used, the schools have also used sort of hubs of best practice. So teachers from around the area will go to the schools and get to see firsthand how the play-based curriculum is implemented and how the teachers use the classrooms. And we've used them for teacher training venues, because obviously they're big and cool and light and bright and things like that. But it's still, you know, not 19 schools compared to the sort of reach you can get with the teacher training. But yeah,
so there's a few other questions in the chat. Linda, interested to know the size of the kindergarten classrooms. They are working in Uganda.
Asked that. I don't know off the top of my head, that it's not very helpful if I say they're huge. They're big. I can find out for you. So sorry, who's asked that? Is it Belinda?
Linda, yeah.
Claire, some of these,
I'm definitely copying.
Will you be able to put me in touch with Belinda, and then I can ask our program director in Ghana, because he'll know the actual size of the classrooms.
Perfect.
So I'll just put a note to follow up on that.
Great. And then Heather says, are you able to source all of your materials in Ghana, for example, the lovely playground equipment?
Oh yeah, it's all built there. It's all the playground equipment is like timber and all made locally and then painted. And they use a car tires. There's some car tires in some of the equipment. One of the schools had a old canoe that they kind of half buried, and then the children were playing in that. So it varies from school to school. But yeah, nothing on the schools is outside of Ghana, because it would just cost even more. And it's not helping the Ghanaian economy if we're just bringing everything in.
Julian has asked, in the image, it looks like some of the rainwater was directed to the water tanks while some went into the ground. Do you use both styles, and which works best for you and which is more sustainable?
All the rainwater goes into those poly tanks. You know, whatever the system can catch is just like you know, like you see, what do you call it? Is it the gutter? You know, the gutter that goes around the edge of your house. So all that runs off the roof and then it goes down into the poly tanks. So I don't know, what do you mean about some of it went into the ground? There's no like pipe borne water. There's no, it's just off the roof through the guttering piping system and into the poly tanks. And then there's a tap on the front of the poly tank to get the water.
Oh yeah, it's just that on that first image you showed, it looked like some of them were going into underground water systems as well.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, no, I think. No, that might just be if there's extra runoff that won't go into the poly tank. But no, it's
not to worry. Thank you though.
That's all right.
And then there's a final question here. Is your teacher training something that you could offer out, or is it specific to the curriculum and not transferable to other countries? It's from Sharon.
Well, the teacher training is specific to Ghana in terms of the training model is teaching kindergarten teachers to implement the play-based kindergarten curriculum. But there's certainly elements of it that are transferable for sure. Obviously, you'd rewrite the sort of minutiae of the training scripts to adhere to whichever curriculum you're using. But as long as it's sort of play-based, then the way the teachers are trained is certainly transferable. We've since COVID kind of catalyzed our digitization work. So we're now looking at we're using a hybrid model. So there's some face-to-face training, which is very experiential, like really hands-on. You know, I talked about the learning centres in the classrooms, the training workshops will have these set up, and the teachers will literally sit down as if they're the children and play with the blocks, and they're taught how to make teaching and learning resources from everyday items, and they'll sit and make those. There's lots of role play. So yeah, it's really hands-on, but then there's also elements of it that don't have to be hands-on that we're delivering online. So instead of 5 days face-to-face, it might be 3 days face-to-face and 2 sort of half days online. And we've been learning as we've gone through, you know, how to make the online training work, because we'd never done it before during COVID. So, you know, first off, it was no way we can do a full day of online training, because, you know, people can't sit at the computer all day. Loads of challenges with internet, just teachers not knowing how to use Zoom, having a computer they can get to, just lots of challenges with that. So, but we've been working through that, because I think once we go to a national scaling model, having a hybrid element, having some of it online, not only helps with the sort of geographical reach, but can make things cost effective. We're working with an organisation called Instill that are helping put the teacher training content online. So it would be, so teachers can do some of their training online. You know, like when you do a course online, you go through and you do like a little quiz at the end, and that kind of thing. So we're working with that at the moment to put some of it online, but a lot of things. So say our team have done a video, they've done an example of this is how to share a story, and they've done, you know, a little 5-minute video on that. The best way so far to make sure all the teachers on the course get it is WhatsApp, because all the teachers have that. They've all got mobile phones. So, but even then, yeah, some need support with the data, how much, you know, internet data they've got to get things. But yeah, it's the teacher training is definitely transferable to other countries. We've sort of, in a consultancy role, worked with other organisations who've taken elements of the teacher training into other countries. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there any other questions, comments?
I just have a comment, Claire. I just wanted to say that Abigail, what you're doing is very impressive, especially like the new trend that you want to go on with, you know, like, and the trying to transform the existing classrooms to be more place-centered. I think that's really great, because when you started with the other new schools, I'm like, what about the other schools that we have? We could like try to change that into making it more, you know, place-centered and interesting as well. And the fact that you do train teachers to know what to do in such classroom is very impressive also. So I think you're doing amazing jobs, and well done, congratulations. And or like on your national skill, I really like that. And anytime you're in Ghana, you can reach out to the world.
Thank you. How can we, Claire, how can I link up? I don't think it might be Katie. Is this group running on Facebook? Like, yes. How can we link up?
Absolutely. So this group was started through, so there's a larger network of us called the Small, it's a really long name, here we go, the Small International Development Charities Network, or SIDCN. So there's about 2,000 members all around the world of small international charities, as it says in the name. So that's any charity under 1 million. Many of us are far below that. Many of us are below 300, if not 50 a year. So it's a great network. It was started on Facebook in 2014, I believe it was, with the goal just to really be able to connect with other people. Vic Hancock Fell, she was sitting in her kitchen and thought there's got to be other people sitting in their kitchen feeling lonely and not sure what to do. So she started this Facebook group, and it's grown into what it is now. And then from there, during COVID, we found particularly with funding cuts and really not the option of any sort of furlough for our teams, that this group came together even tighter to see what we could do together. And then from that, we've put into Friday meetups. And then this is where this education forum came out of people really wanting to connect more on the educational values within their own organizations. So we've spoken about disability awareness, we've spoken about girls' education, we've spoken about farming, we've spoken about corporal punishment. It's sort of kind of go where the wind leads you and what the next topic is. But I can definitely make sure that you're linked with everybody that has asked questions for sure, and make sure I'm just in the midst of copying all of those down.
Oh, okay. I've just seen one from Julian. So we don't build a single classroom. The schools are like a complex. So they have normally 2 classrooms, unless there's more enrollment in that area. They have a kitchen. And when I say a kitchen, it is literally just sort of the frame of a kitchen. We don't provide food and stuff, but some of the schools in Ghana have there's a feeding program. So children do normally get a free lunch, but so there's a kitchen area. There's the toilets that are, suitable for small children, boys and girls, and the playground and the shaded outside teaching area. And there's normally a small little lockable storage area, or sort of office for the teachers as well. But the cost of the complex is roughly £90,000. So this is why I'm not going to build these all over Ghana. It's just not realistic. But I'll work with the Ghana government looking at a sort of scalable, cost-effective model. We'll take we'll take key elements of our design and try and look at a cost-effective model that can be used across the country. And obviously once you get economies of scale, so things will come down if they're building them in lots of places. But yeah, so that's how much they are for the whole thing. They've got the anticipated lifespan is 25 years. So yeah, and the ones what's our oldest one we built in 2010. So yeah, and that's all fine, still standing and working fine.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
So I've shared my email in there. Laurencia, if you want to get in touch, and Chris, I'll probably reach out to you with your that projector. Definitely sounds interesting. Not so much for the teacher teaching the classroom, but more so for teacher training. Couldn't we use that to train teachers? If we've got the content, say if we use this Instill platform and we've got our teacher training content online, could we use it to train teachers, or can the projector be used without the what was it called? Lumi, was it called? Can you use Pod without Lumi?
Firstly, I was just going to say, I thought it was brilliant, Abigail. But and then the second thing was I'm actually on your website looking at the transformational teacher training page, because I just thought it would be interesting with the content that you have to administer it. I think the Pod would never be used without Lumi because it doesn't have to be. I think it will probably be a good idea for me to better explain the capabilities of Lumi, then you would understand how Pod relies on Lumi and how that we could facilitate your content through Lumi in the best way possible, better than what would ordinarily be possible, I would say.
Okay, well, maybe we can catch up outside of this and then.
Yeah, sure. But no, I just wanted to say, hats off. I think the schools look great, although, as you said, the cost is not scalable, but I think forward thinking in these places sometimes comes at a price. And I think, as you said, economies of scale and other clever models can be used to fund these type of things. And I think looking at the classrooms, they look fantastic. So don't let that be a hindrance.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. Thank you, Abigail, thank you both for your time. Really, really useful. I think it's definitely got us thinking about different ways, different things, different ways that we can implement things within our own schools, within our own areas in various different countries. So thank you both so much. If everybody else could stay for just a little bit longer so we could figure out what we're going to do next time. But thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time today, and wishing you a cooler week. And thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you
So-
both. Thank you.
Claire, can we join this? Can I be part of this in future? Like, not to speak, but just because I think it's a good group. We're randomly registered in Cornwall, like just from where our the founder and that were based. But so I live in Cornwall, but I'm part of the Southwest International Development Network. Have you heard of SIDCN?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this one with the sort of education focus and everybody being international.
Absolutely. Unless there's any other, anybody else wants to say.
I think we slightly break the small rule, but only just.
I was going to say,
I think it was just in the last year we might have gone over 1 million, but.
I was going to say, in regards to this, we are obviously focused on sort of smaller aspects. So some of it might be, you might be able to give us some expertise, and some of it might not be as relevant for you. But I don't see why not that you couldn't be a part of this. I'll add you to our mailing list, and we also have a Slack. It's not used very much, but at least it's a good reminder of when things are coming up. So yes, please.
Lovely.
And we meet every 6 weeks ish. And ideally it's a different person from the core, from all of us, from the members, that sort of lead on it or decide, yeah, this is the area we're going to go in. I'm going to go find somebody to talk about this, and bring them in.
That's cool.
And then I send out a bunch of emails.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, but I'll make sure that you're added to that. Make a note for myself.
Brilliant. Claire, could you do the same for me, please? I would be interested to be involved. Thanks.
Sure. Sounds great. On that note, 6 weeks from today is insanely enough September. So that's scary in itself. But what do we want to talk about, and who has any context to do so? Don't all scream at me at once. I'm going to take off the recording.